completely lost my mind. It is called the Aura Funky Cat.
A very significant car. Welcome everyone to the first Chinese EV that you can buy here in the UK.
This is very, very nice, this car. It really is, you know, as soon as you get in it. The interior is just a notch above. It is way above what you expect when you look at the outside. Honestly, I can't believe it. In a car this size, to have a seat that comfy in the back is really, that is nice.
The Funky Cat is a car from a Chinese brand called GWM, or Great Wall Motors, and is a 50-50 joint venture with BMW, which sounds good, right?
Let's start off by talking about the design of the Aura Funky Cat. So it's sort of like being inspired by some other cars. The rear kind of reminds me of a Fiat 500. I do like it though. Moving down the side, if you look at the profile, this kind of area, sort of a bit like the original Nissan Leaf, but better looking. In terms of wheel sizes, they start at 18 inches and stop at 18 inches because there is only one trim level on this car. The only things you can really change are the paint, and you can get this two-tone effect, which I quite like, which reminds me of what you can do with the Mini. And at the front, it also reminds me of the Mini with the headlights, although it's also slightly Beetley and maybe even a touch Porsche 911.
So it's a 5-door, 5-seater hatchback, and in terms of sizing, it's kind of similar to the Volkswagen ID.3, also the Hyundai Kona and the MG4. It's a bit bigger than a Vauxhall Corsa and a bit smaller than the Nissan Leaf. The first thing that jumps out is the Mini, which is actually unsurprising because next year's Mini is based on some of the underneath parts of the Funky Cat. I also think the front resembles Porsche 911. Come on, there are some similarities there.
You look at it and think, that's going to be the same size as a Mini, but actually it's not, it's much bigger. It's about the same size as a Volkswagen ID.3.
So in terms of style then, this car I think has got, it just charmed me the first time I saw it, and it charmed everyone. At Fully Charged Live this year, this was surrounded by people all the time. It does have a bit of Mini-ishness about the front, sort of traditional Mini. I do like it, it's very, very smooth. We're starting to see now more and more electric cars that don't need a big humpy bonnet because there's nothing in there. You know, it's much smaller, there's not a big engine in there. It's got some really quirky little things like this bit of, it's just like a tiny little thing there. A little bit of indentation. I love the back. That's, in a way, this is my favourite part of this. I just love the look of the back. And it's got some really cool extra features. I'm just going to lock it now. There we go, that's locked. But then you watch what happens when you unlock it. Oh, it's got all the lights.
Here on the inside, the Aura Funky Cat is very funky. I like the design of the dash and the fact that, as well as just a normal grey interior, you can get two-tone choices. There's a red and cream, but also this lovely green and cream. I like the fact that the dash is squidgy, it's got leatherette on it, squidgy materials here as well, and like this quilted material. It's all very nice. Makes a Volkswagen ID.3 feel a bit cheap and nasty, to tell you the truth.
This is perhaps not what you would have expected from the first Chinese electric car to land in the UK. The quality in here is very impressive. And the important thing to know is that this is a slightly higher trim car that I'm sitting in here, but much of what you see here, including all of these materials, will come as standard on the base car. This is a really big thing that Aura are going for with this product. They want to show that Chinese does not mean budget or low quality.
It's quite nice.
It is really nice, isn't it? I think this is the one area where the Aura Cat actually wins, kind of hands down, over the MG. Sorry, hope you agree with me here.
I do think it looks good.
And because it's just the attention to detail, the styling, the design, I think it works really well. Also, I love how the two-tone that's on the outside is also reflected on the inside.
Yeah, it's around the band.
And everything, there's nothing, you know, I normally get in a car and you feel like, oh, everything feels a bit plasticky or a bit cheap. Actually, I think it has a nice feel to it. You've got the quilting here,
and
in the doors,
on the back of the seats as well.
The seats,
some nice detail.
The non-leather seats, really nice detail.
The interior is just a notch above. It is way above what you expect when you look at the outside. So they have talked about the quality of the materials, and they are very nice. There's nothing in here that's kind of wobbly or scratchy, or it's beautifully done. I don't know what the materials are, it's very hard to tell, There's certainly no big PR push about it being vegan leather and recycled. There's nothing, no one's mentioned anything like that, and it doesn't look like that's what it is. I don't think this is, it's unlikely to be real leather.
I think it looks rather premium in here. I think it's a really nice finish. If you look up front, there are 2 screens, both 10¼ inches, and they're fused together to give one overall display screen, which I think looks really nice. From what I've experienced so far, it's also really quite easy to use and nice and responsive.
Because this one is easier to use, you can just flip through things quite easily. It's reasonably responsive, not the quickest, but it's okay. One thing that is a bit of a pain is the fact that most of your climate controls have to be operated through this. There is a shortcut button down here for the actual air conditioning, so you can just turn it on quickly and do your front and rear screens as well, but that's it.
Another big plus, these buttons here, really simple, they've got the right things. Your heating on, off, there, a button that you don't need to look down, you'd feel it really easily. Dunk, your heating's on. Your demister there. I drove here in a Tesla Model 3. I had to go through about 4 different settings on a screen while I was on the road to get the demister on. Here I go like that, boom, done, job finished. It's doing it now. A button, it's not that bad. A button is nice.
360-degree view cameras come as standard, and the screen resolution is brilliant as well. You can do a thing like that where you can look around your car, tyre view so you don't feel the tyres, a top-down view to get really close to things when you're reversing, normal reversing camera view.
It looks quite techy, doesn't it? It looks quite technological and fun.
And the same with the steering wheel again, how the two-tone carries on the steering wheel.
That
and
level
all
of
the
detail's good.
buttons here.
It's really good. And there's organ stop switches down here, which is a bit like a Mini, though they are a little bit, you know, when something, they look like metal, but they feel like plastic. They very much feel like plastic. Chromed plastic. Does that bother you?
No, I don't actually.
That is really crisp graphics on the screens, which is really nice. The sat-nav is, again, we've been using the built-in sat-nav, and that is really good. Oh my goodness, that is really a shock. So the driver's seat is where I would have it to sit. So I'm 6 foot tall, Jack is 6'5", so that is 5 inches roughly. So that is a little bit tight. That's probably very unfair, but I tell you what, that's lots of room. And the material in this car is really, that is a lovely bit of quilted, it's like quilted suede.
Knee room, it's good. Headroom, it's good. Foot space is good. What's not so good is that the seat base is quite low to the floor, so you don't have much under thigh support. And while the middle seat and the fact that the floor's almost completely flat do mean it's okay if you're sat in the middle, this car's body isn't that wide, so if you have 3 adults in the back, it's a little bit of a squeeze.
The back seats on the Auracat aren't that big, and the boot is actually quite small. At 228 litres, it's some way less useful than the MG4, and even with the seats folded, only offers 858 litres.
The back, 228 litres of space in the back, i.e. quite small. Not a lot of room in the back, but when you put the seats down, it's 885-ish, somewhere around there.
The Aura Funky Cat is supposed to do 0 to 60 in 8.3 seconds, but the specialist timing gear will reveal the truth and do it. That was a bit of a delay, putting my foot down, but acceleration seems pretty decent. Here we go, 7.27 seconds. They did lie, but in a good way.
Sport mode. Come on! Yeah, it's not a Mini.
Now let's see what the Funky Cat is like on fast roads. So let's say you go join the motorway, you're going from around 40 miles an hour to 70. Let's punch it. Pickup's pretty strong, and that is 70. Well, I went to 69 because I want to stay under the limit. So that was pretty good. What's not so good though is when you're travelling at speed on the motorway. Can you hear this? There's a lot of wind noise.
Now this cat, well, it ain't no cheater, is it? You know, it's perky enough, it is absolutely capable of doing your day-to-day driving. But when I first tested this, I thought it was a solid car, but probably not one that you would get up early to, you know, go for a lovely little weekend drive in. And to be honest, my opinion hasn't really changed.
So all in all, it's a great package. I love this car. I think it's really, really interesting. Go along to one of the dealerships and have a look at one if you're interested at all. Have a test drive of it. It's just beautifully put together.
well, it's 25 grand worth of premium. It really does make an ID3 look a bit like a sort of plastic box, this thing. And that's the car that it's directly up against for me. I've not driven it yet, so I don't want to pass judgment, but based on how it looks and what it's like to sit in, I know which one I prefer.
So then what's my final verdict on the Ora Funky Cat? Should you avoid it? Should you consider it? Should you shortlist it? Or should you just go right ahead and buy it? Well, I reckon you should consider the Ora Funky Cat. It's a pretty decent electric car, just a shame it hasn't got a bigger boot.
That's it. I love it. I think it's really lived up to and beyond my expectations. I was looking forward to driving anyway, but it's actually better than I expected, which is great relief.
Okay, you might never have heard of Great Wall Motors, and you might never have heard of the Ora Funky Cat, but believe me, you're going to be hearing a lot more about this thing in the future. Go check it out.